the outgoing president declared that the elections were not fair, that he has annulled the elections, and that we are heading back to the polls. Section 49 of the Constitution does not permit a contender to make such declaration. If one is dissatisfied with the results of elections, your only avenue for redress is to file a petition within 10 days after the declaration of the results at the Supreme Court. This is what the coalition had emphasized, and as a result, we still maintain that President-elect Barrow is the incoming president of the Gambia, who should assume office on the day of the expiration of the term of the incumbent, which should be around 19th January 2017. Since there is an impasse, and impasse usually leads to conflict, we have pointed out that around the 19th, if President-elect Barrow is to assume office and outgoing President Jammeh said, I will not go, then obviously you will have a constitutional crisis and a likely conflict in the country. We have indicated that to the delegation. It's a delegation that had been listening to the social media. They have been listening to information coming from all sectors of society, from President Jammeh himself and from the coalition. And since Gambia is a signatory to the Protocol on Democracy, Good Governance, and many other protocols, is a member of the AU, member of the United Nations, they have seen the need to form a joint delegation from the UN, AU, and ECOWAS to conduct a fact-finding mission, know what all the sides are saying, the coalition, the government, and the Independent Electoral Commission, in order to know how to mediate and help Gambia not to move into crisis. We have declared to them that there is relative peace in the Gambia today because of our adherence to the constitutional provision. That even though we know that President-elect Barrow is the elected incoming president, we are conscious of the fact that there is a transition in our constitution that make President Jammeh to stay in office until the expiration of his term. And what we wanted was cooperation between the two, and that cooperation started with a liaison between the two presidents. And the next action was to form a team by the coalition and a team by the outgoing president so that they can work on a transition agenda. The ministries and their permanent secretaries would have been met so that you know their strategic plans, know their programs, know their plans of action, know their policies and their projects and their budget lines, so that President-elect Barrow will also form a shadow cabinet prior to assuming office, and the shadow cabinet would have received this dossier and prepare themselves to actually govern, so that upon transfer of power, they will hit the ground running rather than starting to find out what was happening. Now, the problem is that that team could not actually be formed because of a blockage by the announcement made by President Jammeh that he has annulled the election. So, in essence, we have prevailed on them to talk to the other side so that they can open line of communication in the first place, and secondly, to revoke those declarations and allow for a smooth transfer of power. We've assured them that regardless of what is said in the public space, President-elect Barrow has only made two statements regarding President Jammeh. One, that he regards him as a former president, an outgoing president, and when he actually, his term expires, he will regard him as a former president. And the second thing is that if there is any issues of justice to deal with in the Gambia, after he assumes office, he will adopt the South African program of truth and reconciliation. Those are the only two statements he has ever issued. So the heads of states, the president of Nigeria, the president of Liberia, the president of Ghana, outgoing president of Ghana, and the president of Sierra Leone constituted the team along with the UN envoy for African affairs. So it's a high-powered delegation. They listed very carefully. They agreed with us that that is the way forward, that we should maintain the constitutional provisions of the country, to know that President Jammeh is still the outgoing president. He is effectively the president of the country, and incoming President Barrow should counsel our supporters to prepare for the transition phase and to prepare to assume office after the expiration of the term of office of the incumbent. That line of action that we have in mind is the right frame of mind, that the rest is left to them to talk to President Jammeh, talk to us, talk to the IEC, and then see how they can facilitate this dialogue between all the sides in order to facilitate the type of cooperation that will end up having a peaceful situation in the Gambia.
Would the opposition support ECOWAS military intervention if Mr. Jammeh refuses to step down?
The issue of military intervention, no, it's all right. Listen, I'll answer all questions. The issue of military intervention does not arise at this material time. What exists now is a transition phase, and Jammeh, or outgoing President Jammeh, is the head of state of the Gambia, is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the Gambia under the present circumstances. What we are saying is that the Constitution says that he serves for 5 years. His term will end in January, and when that term ends, it means that he will no longer be the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the Gambia. President-elect Barrow will be the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the Gambia. But if President Jammeh says that he will not leave office, he will create a constitutional crisis where his own government will be an outlaw, will not be a lawfully established government in the Gambia, and obviously that may provoke military crisis or the crisis. But that only comes about if the military, which is established to be a state institution, and we should owe allegiance to the state and the people of the Gambia, and should also accept constitutional changes and transfer of power. If that military at that material time refuses to recognize the legitimate authority of President-elect Barrow, that's when you have a military crisis. But obviously, if the military does what a Republican military does, that it accepts constitutional change of power, well, you do not anticipate a military crisis of any sort.
What did Jammeh say in the meeting to the president?
Over IEC. What is your reaction?
Well, we received that information. They are meeting the IEC chairman, and the IEC chairman is in a better position to actually state what has actually happened. We, like you in the media, receive information. And the information is what we can only say. But what is actually happening there, we do not know. But we have emphasized to them that if that is the case, then it is complicating the legal matter. Because if you take a case to court, and then the court is to adjudicate, and if a court is to adjudicate, it must ask you for evidence. And you must get the evidence from proper source. The evidence could only be that somebody voted and the ballots were not proper ballots, and therefore those ballots should be subtracted from the results, or somehow in the voting process the counting was wrong. It means that if those are the allegations, obviously the court may order a recounting. But if those boxes are no longer under the custody of the authority that should actually have them, instead it is in the custody of security forces, obviously the courts will not be able to do what they are empowered to do, that is to validly examine whatever results had been declared and then declare the person who should be duly elected. So in short, that would complicate the matter. That is not in favor of President Jammeh. And I hope that... Hello? Well, that I don't know. It's left to them. They are organized. Well, I cannot say. I'm not privy. No, I'm not privy to that.
What are some of the key issues occupying the discussion?
The key issues dealt with the smooth transfer of power, ensuring that the results of the elections are accepted by all sides as they were accepted before. The second thing is the issue of security, because what is normal under a transition is for the sitting president to grant all access to the incoming president, to accept the team of the president and start a dialogue, to provide security, to even provide state institutions, even where to stay. All this could be provided, to provide offices, to provide transports. All this, under normal circumstances, could be provided by a sitting government. So we believe that there is not a normal transition. Of course, Gambia has never changed through the ballot box for 51 years. This is new for us. And we wanted, at least through dialogue and cooperation, that we develop the right mechanism, and eventually we can make that statutory so that this will never be a problem again. And of course, the issue of security has been paramount. The third thing is to ensure that the security apparatus remain loyal to constituted authority and state their commitment that when an incoming government comes, they will be loyal to constituted authority.
Did Mr. Jammeh convey any message to you to your side via the delegation?
Well, li nga xam ne moom la ñu wax gars yi mooy ne suñu digganteeg moom dafa mel ni fi mu nekk lëndëm a ci nekk ndaxte dooroon nañ mu amoon ndaw boo xam ne ak suñu ndaw dinañ doon waxtaan mu yomboon lool pour ñu téléphone rek ne nangam pour mun a xew ndax ci lañ wéeru woon pour ne nañu fexe pour ñi nga xam ne jàpp nañ leen te nekkul loo xam ne lii mbiri yàq luwaa la boo xam ne bi dafa jéggi dayo pour ñu bàyyi ñooñu loolu yëpp dooroon nañ ci di ci waxtaan bon nag dañ leen wan ne nañu fexe ñu ubbiwaat bunte boobu te yaakaar nañu ne ñoom itam jéem nañ ba bunte boobu xëj na mun naa ubbeeku ndax am na lu ñu ci dégg wan nag dooragul suñ demee ba mu am itam dinañ leen wax leen ne mu nga ca bon nag loolu bunte la boo xam ne wan nañu ne mun naa ubbeeku te ñu ngi koo séntu. You asked what question?
Did Mr. Jammeh convey any messages to your side via the delegation?
Not yet, because there is no communication at the moment. But what we have gathered is that we may have an opening in starting a dialogue. We anticipated it will even start today, but apparently it appears to have been something that is postponed. So there may be a breakthrough in communication.
And the ruling party have filed a case in the Supreme Court. Does this concern you? Do you think this is legal, given that the court has not sat?
Well, obviously, the Constitution states in clear terms that within 10 days after the declaration of results of any election, aggrieved parties could file election petitions before the Supreme Court. So that is a legal matter, and we will not question anybody exercising their right to do that.
Even though there's not enough justices?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's not an issue for us because we are not the court. That is not an issue for the petitioner or somebody responding to the petitioner. What is significant now for us is to receive the petition, because the aggrieved party must serve those whom it is, whom it had taken to question your victory. So in essence, we are not aware that they have filed a petition because we are yet to be served. And
So do you
yes.
think today
The
meeting is
delegates are
fruitful?
leaving tonight. How to call it?
Yes, so you can investigate to find whether they have done so. We are legally not aware that they have filed a petition, because if they do, we should also be served.
So do you think today meeting will be fruitful, Mr.
It is
Sallah?
already fruitful, because you can see the long dialogue, and they are going to take the information they received from us to President Jammeh. They are also talking to the IEC, so all the concerns are being weighed. And they are a body that is a fact-finding body. They are going to report to ECOWAS, all the heads of states, and they will be meeting on the 17th to hear that report. So there is absolutely no doubt that Gambia is highly regarded. It could be, we don't know. What is important? Well, you cannot say a conclusive arrangement has been reached, because this is fact-finding, so they are receiving information still.
So Mr. Jammeh has not changed his mind?
Well, you cannot talk about change of mind without negotiation, and you cannot talk about negotiation without hearing what the two sides are saying. This is the beginning of a process.
And if this process does not end before the due date for the transmission of power to Halifa Sallah, president-elect, what would happen? What is your next option?
What we are saying that we cannot be speculating. We are saying that if that process occurs without any form of collaboration, then we'll have a crisis situation. That is already predicted. But we are saying to preempt that crisis situation. That is why we are taking the initiatives we are taking now, so that we can have a peaceful transfer of power.
And have
Is there